So let's be honest with the public tonight. If we're going to have a real conversation, let's tell the truth, Bill. No more of the flip-flop or saying things when it's politically convenient for you.
And unlike the public advocate, who's really good at telling other people what to do, but not always so good at getting things done himself, I tomorrow will put legislation in effect.
It really is, will the real Bill de Blasio please stand up?
Can you tell from those clips who the candidates think might be the frontrunner in the Democratic race for mayor at the debate last night? Clearly, Bill de Blasio was in everybody's crosshairs. He faced attacks from many of the other candidates on stage. Things got off to a roaring start with the subject of hospital closures.
There are times when it is appropriate for city money to be put in to help stabilize hospitals. Not every time.
Speaker Quinn, you were nowhere on the scene at St. Vincent's. I wish you had been more productive. And our public advocate, I gotta say, Bill, you've been great the last few weeks on the hospital closures. But where were you for the first 3 years of your public? It goes without saying.
Well, I was involved in the St. Vincent's issue too, and let me tell you, it taught me all I needed to know about the role of a mayor, because I appealed to Mayor Bloomberg twice privately, and 2 times he told me he would not get involved to save a hospital. A mayor in this city must stand up to save health care for everyone in every neighborhood. That is part of the job description.
So I want to bring in the panel on this. 2 subjects there. The first, de Blasio clearly under the microscope. It's make or break time for Bill de Blasio, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happens to anybody who's the front runner. It happened to Quinn. It happened to Weiner. Well, he was always under the microscope, except for today, now that he's in final place. So I guess the media's finally done with him. But yeah, it's quite natural you're going to be scrutinized. And you should be scrutinized if you are the lead runner, because people should know whether or not you deserve the position.
I just don't see Bill de Blasio passing the test and making it as a Democratic nominee. I just don't see it. Maybe it's instincts I'm talking on. The last time we had this conversation, I mentioned the bullseye being on his back. He didn't really defend himself adequately or enough to be the Democratic nominee. If you read the body language, Christine Quinn and Bill Thompson, they like each other. The question is, what will happen if they make it into the runoff? As of right now, we don't know who's going to be in this runoff. Polling seems to indicate that it's going to be Quinn. Polling seems to indicate it's going to be Thompson. But it also indicates de Blasio, so we just don't know at this point.
De Blasio's put a lot of stock in the hospital closure issues. It's the issue that got him arrested, and he was back in court this week after that. Dominic, are hospital closures enough of an issue to move the needle in the Democratic primary?
Absolutely not, but it's a ready-made issue for Bill de Blasio. I'm with you. I'm the progressive. Look at the black guy. He's not even black enough. He's not, that's what he's really saying. He's not standing up for you. I'm the guy that will take your fight to Mayor Bloomberg and to wherever it needs to go. And him being arrested for civil disobedience, it plays right into de Blasio's hand. But Quinn has the institutional support, so does Thompson. As of right now, I really don't know who makes it into the runoff.
All right, next subject in the debate last night, stop and frisk.
There's a fundamental contradiction in Speaker Quinn's position, because she wants to keep Ray Kelly, the architect of stop and frisk, as her police commissioner, and she's opposed to the legal ban on racial profiling.
Racial profiling is already illegal, as it should be. This law will allow folks to go to state court in addition to federal court. I think federal court is the right place, as we saw with the judge's ruling, so I will not vote to give state court the ability to weigh in on our police department.
The ad that you just put up a few days ago talks about you're the only one in New York City of all the candidates who will end the stop and frisk era, who will end minorities being profiled. That just isn't true, Bill. Why don't you take the ad down, Bill? Why don't you take the ad down? Bill, and to be honest about it, I think it is important on this one. Stop lying to the people of New York City.
We have to do 3 things. We need a new police commissioner devoted to making the changes we need to bring police and community back together. We need an independent, I emphasize the word independent, inspector general, and we need a local ban, a law ending racial profiling in New York City, banning racial profiling in New York City. We need all 3 of those things. I am the only candidate who will do the 3 things that will actually end the stop and frisk era.
I don't need legislation. I definitely don't need lectures from you on this issue. And I don't need legislation. It takes a mayor with courage and conviction who will end stop and frisk.
Okay, with the caveat that we will get into the merits of stop and frisk in our next segment, so we're not debating stop and frisk itself, who do you think got the best out of that exchange?
I think Thompson showed a lot of passion. He was fired up. You know, I thought watching him in the last campaign and so far in this campaign, he was a little robotic, and he's fired. He knows he's fired up. He knows he's fighting for his political life there, so he's letting it all hang out, and I think that's going to resonate.
I think Thompson is definitely the one to watch. If the hare and the turtle, if we can learn anything from that, slow and steady wins the race. Thompson has been slow and steady. He hasn't moved much, hasn't been the front runner, but he's been very consistent there. He's the one to watch, and I think he comes out on top. De Blasio, bless the Democrats in New York, if they elect him, he's going to lose. He's, as you can see, he's too far left for New York City and his policies, and even in his economic policy, let alone stop and frisk and keeping the city safe. But Thompson's the one to watch.
You know, I think being a mayor of New York City boils down to two things: murder and money. Keep the murders down and keep the city solvent. Right. And I didn't hear anybody talking about that. I heard about a lot of spending ideas. I didn't hear anybody talking about the financial, and nobody saying what's going to happen when the murder rate goes up to 2,000 a year, like it was when the Giuliani Bloomberg 20 years started.
First of all, Democratic primary and Democratic debate last night. And second of all, we're going to debate stop and frisk in our next segment. I said that at the Dominic. That's Bill Thompson. Somebody put some caffeine in his cup before that. That's more than we've seen out of Bill Thompson energy-wise in quite some time.
My colleague made it very clear, and he's 1,000% correct. Bill realizes that he's in the fight of his life. Slow and steady, is that the term?
That's right.
That's Bill Thompson, but it may not work in this primary. He may slow and steady himself on the sidelines watching a runoff between Quinn and de Blasio. De Blasio has outmaneuvered him. It was built up as John Liu would be the one on the far left. Well, the campaign finance board undercut Liu's legs. He's not that much of a contender anymore. He's basically out of this. This is a three-person race. Two are going to make it to the runoff. Thompson is slow and steady, but he's got to show some passion. He's got to.
Is that attack on de Blasio fair coming from Thompson? Because Thompson doesn't want to go as far as de Blasio does on stop and frisk.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Thompson started out as the moderate candidate. He's still the moderate candidate. He has the support of Al D'Amato, Republicans, and police unions. The unions, the police officers want Bill Thompson. That's a unique alliance right there. Black mayor and police unions, they didn't work too well with Dave Dinkins, the first black mayor. But the problem is you have somebody on Thompson's left going, no, this guy, he's not really for the people. I'm for the people. And by the way, look at my African-American wife and look at my African-American son with his afro that's out to here. And it's working. And so the other day, I almost fell out my car, Andrew. I'm driving and I'm listening to a radio station, and guess what I heard? A radio commercial for John Liu, and it was his like 10-year-old niece. So now they're all trying to steal de Blasio's thunder. Right. They're like, grab my nephew, grab my son. Why didn't you cut a commercial for me?
Is Dante the real reason that Thompson wants de Blasio to pull that ad? How effective the ads with his son have been?
Well, but the way it's being shaped is that de Blasio's the one that's only fighting, the only one that's fighting for stop and frisk, and that's not true. Right. But it's the perception is everything in politics, and the perception is Bill de Blasio is the guy that will fight for you, poor Black and Latino communities. Bill Thompson is the moderate, and he's down with the money of the city.
Final subject we're going to get into from last night's debate, and we'll ask the Republicans on the panel to strap themselves in for this one. The candidates exchanged barbs on whether or not to raise taxes on high-income earners.
I put together a tax plan, a tax reform plan that will ask those who make over $500,000 a year, the one percenters, such as Bill Thompson, to pay a little bit more.
My plan is simple. Anyone who makes less than $150,000 a year is going to get a 10% tax cut. If you make $1 million or more, you're going to pay a 1% more.
My plan is for a tax on the wealthiest New Yorkers so we can have full-day pre-K for every child in this city.
I've supported tax increases on the wealthy when the president proposed it and supported that. When the governor pushed that, I supported it. Tax increases aren't off the table, but they're a last resort, not a first option.
There is no way you can rule out the potential that you might have to raise taxes if you're mayor. And if we have to raise taxes, I'm going to do that progressively.
So ringing the bell on raising taxes on the top income earners, I don't imagine my Republican friends on the panel tonight are going to agree with that policy.
No, and I can't believe we're in 2013 and we had a stagnant economy based on let's tax the rich for the last 5 years, and the great city of New York's potential leaders are saying, yeah, let's tax the rich. The definition of rich is going to come down a little bit. It's no longer $1 million, it's $500,000, and we're going to somehow balance our books. The 1% richest people in New York City pay half the income tax. How much more can you tip the balance against them?
But there is a legitimate concern from a lot of New Yorkers that the last 8 years or the last 16 years have been very beneficial to the top income earners in New York City, as well as Manhattan at the expense of low income earners and people in the outer boroughs. That is a legitimate concern.
So let's tax the people who actually create jobs, because the last time I checked, people who were making minimum wage or making $50,000 a year weren't creating jobs. You do not want to tax people who are creating jobs because you want them to create more jobs, especially in a city whose unemployment rate is higher than that of the national average. Especially in a city where unemployment among African Americans and Latinos are double what it is among their white counterparts. Why would you want to raise taxes?
Wasn't there a
if people
fairly
create
prominent
jobs?
Republican who was making that same argument about a year ago this time? I don't think it sold all that well, especially in New York.
Are you talking about Romney?
Yeah, I'd forgotten his name.
That's not why he didn't get elected.
But he certainly was ringing that bell.
You heard what Thompson said. Now, Thompson goes to your point. He's the moderate. He says it's the last, raising taxes is the last option, as it should always be. Look, George Bush Sr. raised taxes. That's how Clinton got the surplus. A lot of people don't talk about that, but he raised taxes, cut spending, and that's how we got the surplus. So certainly sometimes it is. Sometimes you have to do it, but it's always the last resort.
Andrew, here's what I don't understand about the Thompson folks. And, you know, he has consultants that are making millions. But if I was advising Mr. Thompson, this is what the commercial would look like. And maybe it's coming. But I would shoot a commercial with Bill looking directly into the camera, jacket off, maybe hold his jacket on his, because he's not that type of guy, on his shoulder. And the copy would go something like this. When Mike Bloomberg anointed himself a third term, only one man stood up to him. It was me. He spent over $100 million, and there were no other Democrats standing up, but I did. And at the end of the day, Mike Bloomberg beat me by only 4 percentage points. I'm Bill Thompson. I want to be your mayor. That's the commercial. Show some passion.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dominic Carter available for political consulting.
In your mouth.
But before we leave this subject behind, worth mentioning that Christine Quinn got a big endorsement today from the New York Daily News. On the cover, they wrote, quote, "The Daily News measured the backgrounds and promises of each contender by the standards of pragmatism, realism, and effectiveness. Council Speaker Christine Quinn is the Democratic primary candidate best qualified to lead New York as mayor over the next 4 years." Quickly around the table, do these kind of endorsements mean anything anymore? Do they used to mean more?
It would go nicely in her living room when she's watching the next mayor, who's not going to be her, get elected. It goes really nice, by the TV somewhere.
The Daily News endorsed Romney, and it didn't help him in the country or in the state of New York.
Fair point.
Last time I checked, just look at the internet, and that will tell you how good newspapers are doing. These endorsements mean absolutely nothing. Maybe the New York Times, maybe, perhaps, maybe a 0.5 percentage point, maybe on a good day. But the Daily News and the Post is not even worth the paper it's printed on.
Is it bigger for labor union endorsements and other union endorsements on the Democratic side?
They mean a little something, because it's all about, in a close primary, get out to vote. Right. Get out the vote. It doesn't matter what you say now. It's all get out the vote.
If the endorsement comes with money and boots on the ground, then that's what you want. That's when it counts. No writers from the Daily News are going to go out and knock on doors for Christine Quinn.
Probably not. That would be unexpected. All right, up next, the City Council voted today to override Mayor Bloomberg on stop and frisk. We'll have the details as well as a couple of emotional floor speeches next.